Welcome to the Impact of Business Coaching. We have a special guest today. As you know, we do these podcasts for one very basic reason: is we love and we're very committed to business coaches. We love the work that they do and the work they do with business owners across the world and in their own communities. And we just want to highlight them. We want to interview them, talk to them, and see what they're up to, how they're helping business owners. Because at the end of the day, we believe most, if not all, business owners need a business coach just like athletes do. So this is no different, and we are pleased to have Cliff Starks with us today. And Cliff, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Anytime. So um, we kind of try to get right into it, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your. I know you have a very interesting background, but we'd love to hear a little bit about it so the audience can kind of get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pains and our fears are the things that drive us. They're our first driving mechanism. And I remember I'm a 3-year-old kid, and I wanted to go on this Ghostbuster ride, and my biological dad didn't take me on it. So I said I have two dads. I have my dad and my biological. No hate or disrespect towards the biological. He did the best that he could with what he had. But he didn't take me on the ride, and I was so afraid, and I never got on it. So I never got on the Ghostbuster ride. And from there, I used that as energy to say I'm never going to be afraid again. I was quite the contrary. I've been afraid of a lot of things, but you can go through fear and not let fear consume you. That's the big difference. That's the game changer. So I've been using that to really just live as much life as I can throughout my journey, and conquer as many demons as possible along the way.
So, some of your journey, tell us about some of the things you've done in your past.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to, I fought inside the UFC, I fought in Bellator. I was an accomplished athlete. I ended up being a Pac 10. I took third in the Pac 10 for wrestling at ASU. Kinesiology major, ended up personal training, an author, a coach. I've had a lot of fun. I've
Mm.
taken a lot of risk, and I play the game of risk and reward. I don't just take crazy risks to take them, but I do know the biggest risk is really just sitting on the sideline of your life and not doing the things that you want to do and not experiencing the things that you want to experience. So I've just been really big on experiencing as much of life as I possibly can and having a lot of fun along the way.
So, tell me, why do you love business coaching so much?
It's uniquely different. I absolutely love the process because you mentioned, like, every time you find a solution, a new problem pops up.
Right. That's true.
And it's like it's you find a solution and a new problem pops up. And I started looking at it, I'm like, oh man, that's the dance of fighting. Like,
Oh yeah.
you get somewhere, and then it becomes something else. And it becomes something else, and it becomes something else. And even the champions, they're faced with their own mortality after a while. It's only a matter of time before you're the nail, even if you're used to being the hammer. And so it's the greatest mindfulness technique that you can have in solving problems and solving the biggest problem of all, the way our minds work and the internal game, way more than
Mm.
the external game.
That's for sure. So, how do you specifically? I know you have a kind of a unique business model. How do
Mhm.
you guys, you and your team, how do you guys approach business coaching? Who do
Yeah.
you
So
work
what?
with? Like specific type of people, that kind of thing.
Well, we're really looking at vision driven people, people who want to accomplish a really big dream. The reason being, when you think big, you do big things. You tend to do big things. And when you get enough big thinkers together, the society changes because of it. And so going through the process is like, look, we're looking for the vision driven individuals who need the internal, external work and the right vehicle along the way. Like, we were thinking, me and my business partner, like, what could we give them to make sure they get traction in their business no matter what? And ultimately, we don't want people just screwing up and being lazy, but we looked at the worst case scenario, saying, like, okay, what would the worst case?
My gosh. Well, I think I'm still live, but I've lost Clifford. So unfortunately, I don't know how we're going to get him back. Hopefully we get him back just here shortly. I'm going to give it a couple seconds. We can have him back on another episode, but this was a great interview so far. So maybe he'll join us back in a second and maybe not. There he is. Let's see if he comes back in and we can pick up where we left off, and he's out again. So this is a first for me, to be honest. So I'm trying to what do you call it? Stall until we see if we can get some action back from Cliff and get him back on the podcast. I see something else coming back. So there he is again. All right. So I just did a stall. You were talking about how you got to kind of pivot, you got to react. So now yeah, I just did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I think you did that personally, just like it's like a, it's like a
It seems
application.
that way.
You know what I mean?
That was all God or universe.
Man,
or
that was
whatever you
awesome.
wanna call it, 'cause
You'll have to watch this back, Cliff, and see how I did. Like, did I hold it together or was I following? You know what I mean? All that stuff.
I think you did great. I could hear you on the back. That was the funny thing. I cut out, but I could still hear you.
Is that
And,
right?
yeah, that's the beauty of technology sometimes. Technology, just like human beings,
That's
it has its
hilarious.
sparks from time to time too.
The older you get, the less embarrassed you're even capable of being. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I'm sitting here live. I'm like, all right, well, okay, I'll just see.
100%. 100%.
All right. So you were talking about how some of the vehicles you use to coach with your clients.
Yeah, yeah. So we're looking at, there's an internal, there's an external, and then there's the vehicle that they use.
Right.
So the internal, that's the mind game every single time. When you can get the mind in place, when you can get it thinking the right things, because it's programmed, just like anything else. Things start becoming easier. Now the external is, yeah, there are external workings. You could be the greatest leader in the world, but if you're leading someone who chooses to be incompetent, because sometimes that happens,
Yeah.
it's not going to look good, no
Right.
matter what you do. So it's really figuring out, being a great leader is also being a great scout for talent, and a great scout for seeing, like, why are they doing what they're doing, and what do they want to do, and what will they become for doing the thing that they're doing, and putting things into context. And then the vehicle is really hiring and training a virtual assistant specifically to them, tailored to their needs, tailored to their business. And so going with that three-pronged approach, it's like they can't screw it up even if they tried. I wouldn't recommend anybody trying it, but it puts them in a position to where they're going to win. They're going to build traction in their business and be in a position to get their time back and scale their business.
So we all love application stories that help us relate. Is there a story or a situation with a client you've had that kind of encapsulates the work you're doing and how you're solving problems?
Yeah. So I have one client specifically who's going through the process, and I would be lying if I said it's just an easy process where you just seamlessly go through this process. But the person who stops themselves is them. It's more of an internal game than it is an external game. Even I had my own struggles as I was using VAs to move me forward in my business, because I got used to doing things on my own. And what was interesting, what gets people in a lot of trouble is they think if I give my weaknesses off to somebody else, then I can focus on doing what I'm doing. But if you're not documenting those weaknesses, then you're handing it off for someone to do it even worse than you did it, because at least you had some idea of why you were doing it.
So I'm pretty sure most everybody knows what a VA is, but could you explain that just in case?
Yeah. So there's levels of virtual assistants, and we're going more like the executive assistant route, where they can help with the admin, they can help with the graphic design. Like, there's different specialties to different pieces. And I love how you said, how do you explain it? So I would explain it as, just like a football team, you have receivers, you have the O linemen, you have the D linemen, you have the quarterback, you have different positions. And it's your job to figure out, okay, where do you want to play? What position do you want to play in? And what position do you want your other players to play in? And how do you put them into the most effective role that they can play? Some VAs will say they can do any and everything. That's a dangerous game to play. That's like a
Hmm.
receiver saying, like, yeah, I can be the quarterback, I can be the lineman, I can be the linebacker, I can be the O line. Like, it's
Right.
just kind of like, okay, what are we really talking about?
Right.
So, getting really specific on what do you need in your business and what are you doing that's really making you the bottleneck of your business? Because the worst bottleneck that we have is we only get 24 hours in a day. So we got
Yeah.
to be very, very effective on the 24 hours that we're using.
Mm.
And what's also difficult, it's hard to read the jar when you're on the inside. And
Mm.
that's what people are. They're on the inside of their business, they're on the
Mm.
inside of their game. And so they may need something that's glaringly obvious, and they
Hmm.
wouldn't see that. They think,
Yeah.
oh, if I have a VA do this, then I'll be able, and they'll actually make the mess even worse than it was before.
Yeah, yeah. So that's awesome. We like to keep these pretty tight so that people watch them. If someone is really loves what you're saying, which I'm sure they will, where can they learn more? How can they get in contact with you, Cliff?
Yeah, just find me on Facebook Messenger
Okay.
under Clifford Starks. The other thing you can do if you're looking to just understand a little bit more about me and my brand and what I'm creating, join my Facebook group, Mind Body Business Mastery, because
Okay.
that's the game that we want to play. We want to master our minds, our bodies, and our businesses.
Cliff, always a pleasure. Good to talk to you again. We'll have you back on the podcast another time. But as always, appreciate all the work you're doing. It's been good to get to know you personally. I know we've had several meetings, and looking forward to continuing the relationship.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, and a great adjustment. You were definitely a high level athlete in that position.
Take care. Have a great